Episode 16, Great Canadian Fight Show. Masvidal and Covington just duked it out last weekend in UFC 272. If you thought they were going to hug on that one, you lost money because the bad blood is real. And as usual, it's as real as the Great Canadian Fight Show. I'm one half of your co-host. Unfortunately, Alex couldn't be here this evening. So this is his alter ego, Double Decker to Cells, here with one half, joined by, as usual, the brilliant Kyle, who got me again last weekend. His picks are just on fire this year, folks. Kyle, the Wiz, how we doing tonight, baby?
Doing fantastic. What a night of fights last week, and yeah, I can't complain. You know, when the winning's good, and it's good to be up. I think it's like 5-1 or something like that. But no, you have a chance to come back.
Meanwhile, I'm slumping like A-Rod in his latter years with the Yanks. It's tough out here. I'm just hoping for a winning weekend. But let's get into it. Again, I mean, you were absolutely perfect last weekend with your picks. We're going to get right into the main event in a second. But, man, Kyle, I mean, give me your impressions on the pay-per-view. It was a kind of an underwhelming card at first, but a lot of great finishes, some standout performances that we're going to get into in a moment. But, I mean, hey, did you have a good time on Saturday night or what?
I mean, I think I was off by one, just one. If I would have picked RDA, it would have been perfect. Could have been a nice parlay. Could have made some money, but you know, maybe next time.
You gave me that one.
I mean, I was leaning a little towards RDA, but you know, got to give a little slack, you know. The fights were really good. I feel like the main event went as everyone expected to go, but there was definitely some solid, notable callouts on that card that were very interesting fights, like the RDA fight and the what's his name here? Sorry, the Kevin Holland fight. I thought Kevin Holland's performance was very impressive, especially against a tough guy in Cowboy Oliveira. And yeah, it was just overall a great night of fights.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. But you know what? Let's get right into the main event because, I mean, hey, let's be honest. This was the one that everybody was looking for. This had Vince McMahon Attitude Era all over it. Teammates, roommates. I mean, the videos that came out with these guys, it was awesome, Kyle. I mean, I loved it. And to see him fight like that and to have genuine bad blood, I mean, it was awesome. But Colby Covington comes in, works his game plan to absolute perfection. I mean, I know we can't take anything away from Colby, but do you think this was more of a dominating performance by Chaos, or was it Masvidal had a bad night?
I think Colby's wrestling is just too dominant. I think Masvidal going into this fight, he knew he was going to have a tough time with Colby's wrestling. He knows how good his cardio is. They obviously trained together, so he knows. I think Masvidal probably thought he trained enough over the years to kind of deal with his wrestling, but it was very similar to when he fought Usman. He just couldn't really do too much, couldn't control any of the wrestling. All the transitions you see when he tried to reverse something, Colby was just right back on top of him, reversed the position immediately, and basically took it to him the whole fight. He did have that one moment where he clipped him pretty good. And the best quote by him was, they're like, what do you feel like when you got clipped? He's like, oh, I took a knee for the first responders.
I didn't catch that.
It's pretty good.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's stay on that clip because you know, Masvidal, he did hurt him. I mean, do you think that's something that he's going to look back on as a missed opportunity, or do you think maybe, you know, he's running low on gas in that moment, or like, what's your take on that moment there? Like, because there was definitely something there for Masvidal.
I think he definitely did run out of gas. He clipped him. He could have just went full tilt and tried to go for the kill, and maybe could have got the kill on him, but he did look gassed. He didn't go for it. Almost kind of like a Nate Diaz, like when he clipped Leon Edwards and just kind of pointed at him. It didn't really do much. But in reality, if he would have right after that went straight after him, he probably could have got the W in that case. So maybe not as, he didn't clip him as hard in this one, but he still could have swarmed him and potentially put him out of there.
Oh, couldn't agree more. I mean, hey, it was a great fight. I mean, Colby Covington, if it wasn't for Usman, this guy would be the champ, in my humble opinion. I mean,
For
he's
sure.
just that damn good. I mean, he doesn't have the power shot, but man, is his cardio next level. But let's stick with Masvidal for a second. I mean, he does sign a record-breaking contract before this fight. I believe it was the third highest UFC contract in history, behind
Mhm.
only Israel Adesanya and Conor McGregor. I mean, this was the first fight of his deal. Didn't really go as planned. What do you see next in line for Masvidal?
I mean, it still seems like he's in it. He wants the tough tests. Um, a fight I would like to see would probably be. I know they fought in the past, but Wonder Boy and him had a very close matchup back in the day. So you can give him like a Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy obviously wants a win. He wants a win. That might be a fight that makes sense. Um, but I still think he's got some fights in him. Or he might just try to go for like the big names. Maybe try to go for like a Nate Diaz rematch. Maybe even a Connor fight. Who knows if the money's right. But I think he needs to get a W before he can kind of sell himself further, because coming off 3 straight losses is tough.
It is tough indeed. I mean, yeah, I personally think he's got only gimmick fights left in him at this point. Big money fights. Nate Diaz, obviously a name that stands out. Shoot, maybe even Nick Diaz would be a cool one too. But I do think for Masvidal, that's what's in store. But as for Kobe, he's a bit in a peculiar spot here. I mean, he's just lost to Usman twice. Uh, I mean, there's not too much else. He called out Dustin Poirier at the end of that fight, which we're going to touch on after this. But I mean, what do you think is the most likely pairing for Covington next?
Yeah, he's got a few interesting choices. Like he's talked about moving up to middleweight in the past, which he's a fairly decent sized welterweight. He might be a little small for middleweight, but then again, look at like Robert Whitaker. Robert Whitaker is not necessarily a big middleweight, and he was a champion for so long. So, and there's not too many guys at middleweight that have the crazy wrestling that Kobe has. So that's an option. And then, yeah, he could. I don't know if he'll go down. Like maybe he could go down to 155, but it might be too big of a cut for him. But I could see him maybe fighting Poirier at if Poirier wants to go up to welterweight. If Poirier wants that fight, it's a big money fight. These rivalries sell pay-per-views. I don't know what this pay-per-view did. I think it did maybe the talks, or it did like 6 to 800,000 buys or something like that. So decent pay-per-view if that is the truth. So he definitely has that option to potentially fight Poirier for a big money fight. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, as a fan, I mean, I'm out here just starving for it. I mean, again, it's a bad blood fight. You love to see it when guys have genuine hate towards each other. I mean, it just shows how sick of an individual I am. Like, I'm just trying to stem that hatred and get them to meet in the ring so that I can eat my popcorns and drink my beer and watch it. But I do think there is such a thing as going too far with the trash talk. I think when you start attacking people's families, and you start mentioning people's kids, and you start mentioning people's religions, and you get into like that kind of like that, I wouldn't even call it gray area, like that dark area and stuff. And I just think it's dirty, and a part of me thinks that Poirier won't allow him to make money off him just because of that. Like, I think that the hate is so pure that I don't think Poirier gives him that fight. But I mean, let me get your thoughts on that, though. Again, let's go back to the trash talk here, because we can't talk about Kobe Chaos without talking about his trash talk. I mean, his shtick is awesome to a certain degree. Kyle Allen, do you think there's some lines that just straight up shouldn't be crossed? Do you think there's such a thing as going too far with your trash talk?
I think so. Like, it's a tough line because it is entertainment business, but yeah, there is a point where you're talking to people's family and stuff like that. So I think there is a line, but he seems like a guy who's willing to go over the line, and no one else is doing it in UFC. No one's stepping over that line to really put themselves out there like that. So I see why he's doing it, just to really like get the clips, get the YouTube clips going on him, and just making him a superstar based off that. Chael Sonnen was the original trash talker. Occasionally, he never talked about like people's family and stuff like that, but there was some like controversial stuff about him talking about like um, maybe like race and stuff like that, like when he was fighting John Jones or Anderson Silva, kind of on their race and stuff like that. So he was kind of there, but not to this extent of Kobe Covington. But I don't agree with it, but it sells. People enjoy it, so it's hard to say.
I mean, I think Chael Sonnen is one of the best, and I think his trash talk was all within those lines. I don't remember anything race related going into Anderson Silva. I remember him making fun of his gym, making fun of where he got his black belt, relating to getting a black belt for the Nogueira brothers is like getting an extra toy in your Happy Meal. But this is like, that's comical. That's good. That's McGregor versus Poirier the first time around. It's McGregor versus Dennis Seaver. It's McGregor versus Aldo. That was like awesome, clever, funny trash talk. Like when he was yelling at Aldo and he was calling him, he was like Otavio, and apparently it means like pussy in Portuguese or something like that. Like that's clever,
Yeah,
like
maybe.
going at calling somebody a deadbeat dad and stuff. Like I'm never gonna be with it. I think it's too far. So I mean, hey, as much as I respect Kobe's style, I'm really hoping somebody knocks that guy out in the short time.
Yeah, if he keeps doing what he's doing, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough
It
for
is
anyone
gonna
that
be
fight.
tough.
It's going to be tough for anyone fights him. So the one thing I do respect is that he, even though he does talk so much trash, and maybe not the right kind of trash, he backs it up. Like he's a stud when it comes to like wrestling.
Yeah.
He's always in it. He takes big shots and he still comes forward. He never shies away from like big fights. So you got to respect him for that. And but yeah, I'm sure he could tone down the trash talk, but I don't know if he's already gone too far where it's kind of hard to go back.
Well, you know what? But before we close on this segment, I got a little great Canadian double-decker pick for you here, Kyle Allen. I'd like to get your opinion on it. There's a fight right around the corner with our boy Hamzat Chimaev taking on Gilbert Burns. What do you say to that winner getting a date with Mr. Covington for the clear number one contender for the welterweight championship? What are your thoughts on that, my friend?
Yeah, I've heard the talks about that being potentially in the future. It just really depends how that fight goes. If Hamzat comes in there and just destroys Gilbert Burns like pretty quickly and pretty easily, then who's going to want to take that fight? Like, I don't
They're
know
going
if
to have
Kobe,
to take that fight.
yeah, I don't know if Kobe will take that fight or he'll just rather go for like the money fights. But yeah, it really depends. If Hamzat comes in and destroys Gilbert Burns, like it's hard to deny him a title shot based off that. Gilbert Burns is, I think he's 3 or 4 in the welterweight division. Like he's fought Usman before. He's coming off a win against Wonder Boy. Like he's right up there. So if Hamzat can come up there and just take him out, I'm like, wow, it's impressive and almost deserves a title shot over having to fight another fight.
I agree. I mean, my God, would that be good? Just the thought of seeing Hamzat Chimaev go one-on-one with Kobe Covington. I mean, whoo, these are the fights that get me up in the morning, baby. But let's move on to our main event here of the evening. The next topic is RDA versus Moicano, who accepted the fight on, I believe, less than a week's notice. So congratulations to him stepping up. It was a 5-round co-main event, folks. A lot of people thought it should have been stopped after 3. RDA just absolutely smashed him for the first 3 rounds. I mean, what did you think of RDA's performance, Kyle? And do you think this warrants him a top 10 opponent next?
Yeah, coming off, I forget how long he was off for. He was off for, when did he fight last? I think it was at least about a year ago or something like that. And
It
he
was
looked good.
actually over 2 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So 2 years off and he looked good, man. He looked better than ever. He almost looked vintage RDA, just the pressure. His striking looked good. His grappling looked just as good as it used to look. And just an overall impressive performance. Maybe near the end there, he was kind of easing up on him because he was beating him up pretty bad in the later rounds. So hard to say, but if he was fighting someone else, maybe he would have just finished him because he knew that Moicano was coming in off a 7-day, basically like a 7-day short notice. So maybe took a little bit easier on him, but it was a great performance by Dos Anjos, and I'm very curious to see who he fights next. And yeah, he definitely deserves someone out. I'm almost saying the top 5.
I mean, I would too. And no, he did look stellar. He dominated Moicano for every single round except for a couple minutes of the fifth. But let's get to that because I got something that I believe we need to discuss here. I mean, I'm a man of honor. I know that you are too, brilliant Kyle. And you looks the other way like he's not, maybe. But
I was thinking if I have a white towel, I can throw in here to push up the segment.
I mean, there was a lot of people that said it should have been stopped after 3 rounds. I mean, he barely came out of that fourth and out of that 5th round. I believe the referee said he'd give him a minute or even less, 30 seconds to kind of get the fight going. And if it wasn't looking good, he was going to stop it. But that's where RDA clearly took his feet off the gas. And he started coasting. He got comfortable. And he got hit with some bad shots. Like he even mentioned in an interview with Ariel Helwani that he got hurt by one of those shots. He hurt his eye with one of those shots. I mean, what do you think goes through the eye? What do you think goes through a fighter? And neither of us are fighters, folks. But in terms of having honor and not having a little bit of mercy for your opponent, like in your eyes, what do you think goes into a fighter going into a fight like that, into a final round like that, where I mean, they could seriously hurt their opponent here if they put it on him. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a tough call. Like, I feel like if you're a fighter, you have to have that like kill first mentality. Like you want to win. All the fighters want to win. You can't have any soft spots to kind of make it easy for them. But I guess RDA does understand that he took out short notice and he was beating him up a lot where he's taken a ton of damage. Where again, like you were mentioning, they potentially could have thrown in the towel in the 4th or 5th round there. So it's a tough one. For me, I think fighters should just go for the kill and just try to take him out no matter what. But I understand there are probably some fighters with honor and they want to kind of take it easy and not do as much damage as they need to and hope the ref stops the fight kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but talking about throwing in the towel, is there a reason you think why we seem to see that more so in boxing than in
MMA? Maybe because boxing is like pure headshots and you're just taking headshots for 12 rounds or whatever it is. At least in MMA, you're not taking so many headshots. You're taking body shots, you're taking leg shots, stuff like that, getting grappled to the ground and like put in bad submission positions, stuff like that, but you're not getting smoked in the head for 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds and taking that amount of damage. So that's probably why it's less, but I don't see it being that bad, especially like in a round like that where you're just taking your fighter's taking so much more damage. You know he's going to come back in the future, so why not stop it early and let him recover, not take as much damage, and just get back in there for the next fight when he's recovered.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it is more headshots in boxing. I did that thought didn't cross my mind. So yeah, I mean, I just figured it was a thing of MMA fighters just being a little bit more tough, you know, like
that too.
But again, great co-main event. It did seem like it lingered on for a little bit, but I mean, Moicano came out strong in those final rounds. I mean, I know he seems like he's probably going to be out for a minute, but this is one of those fights that you got to think the UFC. I mean, they can't punish him for this, right? I mean, he really came through for them. I mean, they got to give him another big fight in probably 6-7 months. You'd think. What are your thoughts on maybe what's next for Moicano?
No, I don't think you can ever punish someone for stepping on short notice and saving a fight. They're taking it on short notice because they genuinely think they can come in there and then do something, make a difference, and potentially get the upset. Because like, what a story that is if someone comes in 7-day notice. It's happened before. They come in short notice and they end up beating the fighter. Like it's there's definitely more reward than risk when you take a short notice fight, I think. Sure. So I like to see it. Like I generally prefer to see a full camp because you usually get about a better fight out of that. But it's still exciting to see someone come in and have the potential to kind of upset the other fighter.
Not to mention, I mean, you've got to be a wild man and you've been preparing for someone for an entire camp, but you got to step in and fight a completely different fighter on short notice. Like,
Yeah.
there's this fighter's mindset that us normal folks will never understand. But congratulations again to RDA. Again, he comes out and just dominates on Saturday night. Great performance by him. Do you think they maybe run it back with Fiziev sometime in the near future? They give us that fight, or do you think maybe he moves on to a more marquee matchup in his career?
I personally, as a purist, would love to see the Fiziev and RDA fight. I think that's we partially got robbed this weekend not seeing that fight. It's a really good fight. But yeah, he called out McGregor. I think I forget he called someone else out that he would want to fight. I would think Makhachev. He said he's still down to fight Makhachev. So any of those fights tickle my pickle, if that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I know Connor and him had some bad blood back in the day. I doubt Connor will take that fight, but I would be down to see it.
Well, as do we. I mean, love to see RDA back in the octagon as soon as possible. I'm personally really hope he runs it back with Fiziev. I really wanted to see that fight, so that's the one that I got my double-decker fingers crossed for, folks. So let's move on now. Again, congratulations to RDA, dominating performance. But let's move on to some other fights that stood out on the card. Bryce Mitchell came out on Saturday night. If you didn't know, folks, he's from Arkansas. And he came out and just absolutely dominated, utilizing his wrestling and putting Barbosa on his ass with a mean right hook in the first round. I mean, man, Bryce Mitchell, this kid is here. Kyle, let me get your thoughts on Bryce Thug Nasty, all nickname, folks, Thug Nasty Mitchell.
Yeah, he's solid. I definitely knew he was going to be one to look out for on this card. His wrestling is really good. And I don't know who exactly he trains with, but I've heard he just trains like on his farm in Arkansas, which is like, if he actually does that and doesn't have like full trainers and stuff like that, that's next level.
That is next level.
But he looks really good. He looks like a contender in the division. He put it on a tough Edson Barbosa. Edson Barbosa is always a game opponent. I don't know how I feel about Edson Barbosa at 145 anymore. It seems like he might be depleting himself too much. He looks more tired than he usually was. And but yeah, definitely stellar performance by Bryce Mitchell.
Not a lot of leg kicks by Barbosa on Saturday night, eh? I mean, that's usually his trademark. There's a little bit, I think you're right. I think maybe he was a little bit too tired to throw those kicks.
Yeah.
But Bryce Mitchell, again, looking awesome. And we're excited to see him against a top contender very, very soon. Another shout out from UFC 272, Kevin Holland, trailblazer, loudmouth, making his welterweight debut. That's 170 pounds for a guy that in an interview, Kyle, let me get your reaction on this, said he weighed 190 pounds on Saturday night. 190. Can I remind you folks that on Friday morning, he has to weigh 170. That means that in 36 hours, he put on 20 pounds of mass. But hey, he looked awesome. What a performance on Saturday night he had against a very game Cowboy Oliveira. I mean, hey, did you think that first round with Holland, because he did have a slow start, but do you think maybe that first round was him just settling into the weight class, or like what was your take on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's him getting adjusted and yeah, maybe settling into fighting at 175. And I think Kevin Holland is just a little bit of a slow starter. Like he has a little more feeling out time than other fighters. That's why I think in his losses, you see him lose. He loses in the earlier rounds, not really getting started quite as quick. But no, he looked really good at 170 or 170. And I'm very curious to see how he does moving forward. And like you mentioned, he was at 190 pounds, but look at Usman. Like Usman must be well over 190 when he gets in the ring. He's stacked. So I don't see it being bad that he weighs a little bit more. And maybe he was a little bit too small or too skinny for 180. So I'm very curious to see how he does at 170. And maybe this is his weight class.
Called out another cowboy. Looks like he's trying to get Cerrone to fight him next. And is that a fight you want to see, or do you want to see him against a bigger name in the welterweights?
Maybe a bigger name, but that could be still a fun fight. Like Cerrone is always an entertaining fight, but he's definitely on the back nine of his career for sure. So that might be too easy of a fight for Kevin Holland, in my opinion, but I'm still down to see it. I love Cerrone fights, so why not?
Why not indeed, folks? Kevin Holland at welterweight is a sight to see. He didn't take a lot of damage this weekend, so hey, we could see him again real soon, maybe this summer, and we can't wait to see him next because every time he fights, it's always entertaining. That kind of puts a bow on UFC 272. Kyle, let's get into great Canadian picks before we move on to next weekend. Who was your great Canadian pick for fight of the night?
Let me see here. I'm just looking at the card real quick, go through it. For fight of the night, I'd probably have to go with RDA and Moicano. I know RDA was very dominant early on, but then near the end when he kind of started landing bombs on him and he's covered in blood, and it's what you want to see in a fight. And it's always exciting seeing someone come in on short notice. So I feel like that was my fight of the night.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. Brilliant, Kyle. All the other fights were fairly one-sided, fairly dominated. This was the only fight where you possibly could have seen it going either way. And by that, I mean, maybe Moicano can land that shot in round 5. Like he gave you that glimmer of hope. And yeah, this was the gladiators, man. I mean, I loved it. These guys were scrapping out. I mean, there could have been a death out there, and it was fucking awesome, baby. Yeah, that's our fight of the night for sure. Great Canadian picks for performance of the night. I'm gonna go first on this one, and I'm giving it to Kobe Chaos Covington. I mean, he came out and just again executed the game plan to perfection. He looked amazing. He was levels above Masvidal in the wrestling, and he used it. Got a little carried away at some point with the striking, took a few shots for it, but Kobe Covington, again, a near flawless performance.
I'm going to go with Bryce Mitchell on this one. I think he's the truth. I think he's an up-and-coming featherweight contender for sure. And I like his post-performance talk when he just went straight to the whole like Christian thing and everything.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was not like it's definitely him who he is, but I thought it's original. You don't see that very often, and yeah, it was cool that he's going to donate a bunch of money to like the charity in Arkansas and stuff like that. So he's a genuine fighter, and I feel like you don't see that as much nowadays. So he's going to go with my performance of the night for sure.
Not just a large amount of money, but half his fight purse, Kyle.
Yeah,
and that's what he said. That's awesome. I agree. Great pick there, Kyle. We love Bryce Mitchell. We love Kobe Chaos Covington. Those guys are the great Canadian performers of the night. Folks, if you want to run back that pay-per-view and go watch those fights, highly, highly recommended. Let's move on to some other fights that have either just been announced or already been announced, and that are very quite exciting for us. Starting with the freshly announced Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Kyle Allen, holy shit. What are your thoughts on that one, man?
Thoughts are a couple words. Great Canadian fight of the year.
Great Canadian fight of the year.
Yeah, this is like, I don't know, you can't really put a better fight together. Like this has all the workings to be like a instant classic, basically. Like the hype that Gaethje and Chandler had, like this is, to me, it's almost as equal to that fight. Like I definitely think this is gonna be a war, and it's an interesting fight overall. Like They're both coming off losses. They're both kind of like in the semi later parts of their career, trying to turn it around. So the fight totally makes sense, and it's a great fight.
Trash talk is going to be awesome too. Remember, this is where Ferguson dropped the "you got Dana White privilege" line on Michael Chandler, the line of the year, in my opinion, in 2021. Man, I mean, hey, it's remains to be seen how much old Tony Ferg's got left in the tank, but man, does this have the makings of an instant classic.
Yeah.
Another one that was announced too, Kyle, was Cheeto Vera versus Rob Font, both coming off great performances. Again, this is a fight with very serious title implications in the bantamweight division. Man, I mean, do you think this is finally the fight that takes Rob Font to that next level? Or do you think Cheeto Vera continues his hot run and continues that collision course to a Sugar Sean O'Malley rematch? I mean, what do you think? What are you more leaning towards, my man?
Yeah, I really like Cheeto Vera. I like his story. Like, he's from Ecuador, and like growing up in Ecuador, coming over and like just basically dedicating his whole life to MMA and like becoming basically a world champion. And yeah, I'm definitely rooting for Cheeto Vera in this one. But Rob Font is no joke. Rob Font's always a tough customer for anyone. But man, the story here, if Cheeto Vera wins, gets inches closer to a title shot, Sean O'Malley rises up to another title shot, or to a title shot as well, and they end up fighting maybe for like a number one contender or something like that. Man, that's a great Canadian story right there.
The great Canadian story. Oh, I couldn't agree. I mean, hey, both these guys are strikers too, so you know we're going to get a stand and bang, just bleed classic. This is another one, folks. Keep an eye out for this one, because this one is going to be good. Speaking of good, there is a rumor going around that Stipe Miocic is coming out of retirement. Was he retired? I don't know. Nobody really knows. Coming out to fight Tai Tuivasa. Woo! Man, let me give one more. Woo! This one is, I mean, man, another banger. The UFC is they're tickling our pickles right now, Kyle, aren't they?
My pickle is certainly tickled on this one.
What do you think about that heavyweight fight? I mean, man, I mean, that's got to be a number one contender fight, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this another fight that makes complete sense. Tai Tuivasa coming off the two big wins over Derek Lewis and what was the other win? Maybe you can refresh my memory here. He beat
Derek Lewis and Hardy before that.
Was it Hardy before? Yeah, Hardy and Derek Lewis, like two big power punchers. He was able to take both of them out. And now fighting Stipe, arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. Arguably. If he can get through Stipe, then he's for sure guaranteed a title shot in the future once they kind of sort out the heavyweight title picture with John Jones and Ngannou. And for Stipe, it's maybe he sees this as an easier fight for him to remain in the title contention, because if he can beat Tai Tuivasa, he's still right there. He's still right in the title picture to challenge Ngannou or Jones or whatever happens in that controversy that's going on right now.
It's definitely an easier fight, in my opinion, than versus Cyril Gane or John Jones. That's for damn sure. I just think those guys are young and technical, and Tuivasa, he's a bruiser, he's a scrapper. I mean, there's an equation to beat that. But again, very excited. I mean, man, he is on some kind of a run right now, Tuivasa. We love him. We love the shoeies. So keep him rolling. And we're going to keep it rolling with one last fight here to cap off episode 16 that we want to get into, switching sports to the gentleman's sport of boxing, where there are quite a few rumblings going around that the UFC welterweight champion will be stepping in versus none other than Canelo Alvarez. I mean, this is another big one. Doesn't have quite the flair as McGregor Mayweather the first time around, but holy shit, Kyle, wouldn't it be friggin' sweet to see the number one pound for pound UFC guy versus the number one pound for pound boxer, both in their primes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, It would be like, I'm down to see it. I'm never opposed to like these boxing crazy crossover fights, but I do think there's a few things that have to happen first before this fight could take place. Usman's supposed to fight Leon Edwards at some point.
Yep.
They're talking about the summertime because I know Usman had a hand injury and he's getting that fixed, and then he's supposed to fight Leon Edwards in the summer. So if Usman could go in against Leon Edwards in the summer, and I think he would have to get a knockout. Like if he gets a crazy knockout on Leon Edwards, KOs him, and then goes on the mic and calls out Canelo right after that, then I think that fight completely makes sense.
Yeah.
But if he goes in there against Leon Edwards and just wrestles him down and wears him out over 5 rounds, then it just doesn't show enough, I think, for the Canelo fight. But I think he has to go in there and get a finish and get a KO on him, and that could set up the Canelo fight for sure. And I don't see it being out of the realm of possibilities that fight happens in the future.
If you had to put a percentage point on it, how likely do you think this fight is happening?
Right now, I would say it's like a 30-70, like 30% it happens, 70% doesn't happen. But if you can go in there and knock out Leon Edwards, I think it goes up to like a 70-30 in the other direction.
Ooh, 30% already. Brilliant, Kyle. He hasn't been wrong this year, folks. I'd give that some weight. But that concludes our episode 16 of the Great Canadian Fight Show. Again, we touched on UFC 272, which was a great card. Congratulations again to the Great Canadian winners of the night. Kyle Allen, give us your finishing touches on this episode before we put a bow on it.
Yeah, it's not much more to say. It was a great night of fights, and definitely some very interesting upcoming fights. We're going to try to touch a little bit more on these interesting fights that we hear about and that come up that kind of can kind of get you guys more intrigued in the future of fighting. And yeah, we're going to do some more segments, some quick picks, so we can get some quick picks on some of our upcoming fights. And, I haven't been wrong too often, so can you make some money off me if you tune in?
That's right, folks. Whatever I say, take the opposite. And whatever Kyle takes, take it to the bank, baby. He's been hot this year. But we're only in the spring, and Double Decker always warms up come summertime. So watch out for me. But yes, as Kyle said, watch out for our quick pick segments coming out soon this week on the Instagram page and linking to YouTube. Again, if you like our content, like and subscribe. Leave some comments. We love your feedback. We love what you think we can do to improve our program. And again, follow us on Instagram, the Great Canadian Fight Show 2022. Thank you very much, folks. Kyle Allen, it's been an honor to talk fights with you, my friend. Stay safe out there. And to all our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. We love fights, and we love you. Thank you very much, guys, and have a great night.